Hawaii will host Stanford. When is Hawaii going to break in the new grounds of their stadium? I don't know, by the way. That's taking forever. Hawaii opened as a dog. Now, 2.5-point favorite. Total has come down, 55.5. You can find 51.5, 50.5 out there. All right, so let's break this one down. Hawaii, they lost Brendan Schrager, but Michael Alaheda, the freshman who really shined last year in limited duty against some bad defenses, but he looked fantastic. He now takes over at quarterback with his top two receivers back, Vincent Colley and Ashlock. Run and shoot offense. That's what Timmy Chang wants to run. A lot of four wide. They had a couple other power forward transfers to the wide receiver room. It hasn't always looked like the pure run and shoot of like the old Hawaii days, but it did when Alaheda was in there. One of the things that he really, like, you see him, he's not a huge, he's like, what is he? I think he's like 5'10", 180.
Yeah.
Small kid, but he gets rid of the ball quick, which is what you need to do. And Schrager, he would hold it too long, and it cost the offense a lot.
I think the offensive line,
yeah,
for the 50-yard bomb, yeah.
So the offensive line had a lot of injuries last year, and they were young. I'm expecting a leap. Left tackle is the position that I'm worried about there, but I think this offense is going to cook. Now, similar to the air raid, this is like a timing offense. So maybe it's out of sync early. But the one thing that gives me confidence with the Hawaii offense is Alaheda came in now, and when Trigger got hurt, and he was cooking right away, this offense. So that gives me something. Now he gets to work with the offense. His top two receivers back. He had a bunch of offensive linemen that came back as well. But he was cooking right away. And I just loved his command of the offense. I mean, this is a guy, I get it. Look. New Mexico and Utah State, their defenses weren't great, but he went 11 of 12 for 111 and a touchdown against Utah State, 37 of 57 for 469 and 5 touchdowns against New Mexico. So there was just like no ramp up period. Everything was just full go. It was clicking. So I like this Hawaii offense this year. The defense was pretty underrated last year, especially in the secondary, but they do lose Cam Stone, who was outstanding. I'm surprised he's not on the NFL roster yet. And then Caleb Brown, their other corner, transferred to Va Tech. Safety's solid. Their nickel's solid. I like their linebackers, but the cornerbacks and the defensive tackles, those are the two positions that I'm really worried about. But I think that this Hawaii team's going to be feisty, especially at home. Chang's really struggled on the road, but I will say, I do like Hawaii. I'm mad that I kind of missed the number. I'm not sure how I'm going to play this yet. Maybe live. Maybe I'll throw them in a fun parlay. But I'm having bad flashbacks of when I bet Hawaii against Stanford a couple of years ago. I got them plus 8.5. And they closed 2.5. And they got destroyed. It was never competitive. And I believe that was week 1 or week 0. So I am having major flashbacks about that game. Let me see. What was that final score?
I think I'm having flashbacks of an over with a bunch of like 8 balls being dropped.
30, I think it was 2023, 37-24 was the final. So I am having flashbacks about that. By the way, you have to accept that you're going to get some CLV dumpster fires, and you're going to be so wrong and so right. We're going to be so wrong and so right on certain teams, just with all the turnover and uncertainty. Accept it. You got to adjust these teams, but you just have to know in week 0 and week 1, sometimes you're going to beat the close by 5-6 points, and you're like, oh well, I got a free winner, and it doesn't necessarily work like that. It's great. You want to beat the close by that much, but with so much uncertainty, sometimes the market's just going to be wildly off on some of these teams. That certainly was the case in that Hawaii Stanford game. Stanford, meanwhile, it's a mess. I mean, this was supposed to be the year. And by the way, Hawaii's a 2.5-point favorite, if I didn't mention that. This was supposed to be the year for Troy Taylor. He came into a bad situation. Team was gutted by the portal. Well, this was supposed to be year 3. You know, he has his guys now. He's been building his offense. Like, I expected them, like, if you asked me like a year ago, like, this is the year they probably take a leap. They get to a bowl. They can end the run of, 3-win seasons. But he gets let go for some off-the-field stuff. Andrew Luck now is running the show. He brings in Frank Reich to run the show as like a temporary head coach for the season as he searches for the new one. And this all happened in the spring. And then in the spring, the quarterbacks were Bachmeier and Brown. They were splitting the reps, but Bachmeier transferred to BYU, and Brown didn't win the job. That's going to be Ben Goldbertson, who transferred from Oregon State, kind of like your prototypical just dead average
replacement player level. Yeah,
player. Like they probably just Reich like loved his experience probably, over the redshirt freshman, and he's had his command of the offense. But this is a much more complex offense. Frank Reich's offense is going to be pro style. It's going to be slower. Yep. Like the complete opposite of what Taylor did. Spread it out. He wanted to air it out. This is going to be let's run the ball, pro style, play action, use our tight ends more. But do they have the personnel to do that? I'm not sure. They have one catchback from their wide receiver room. One. Their offensive line, and they lost from the wide receiver. Ironmanner, who might start in the NFL as a rookie. Mosley went to Texas. Bachmeier, also another Bachmeier, went to Boise. It's a brand new room. Like they're really counting on C.J. Williams, the Wisconsin former USC transfer, and then some guys that I'm not fully sold on. But like you look at their offensive line, like the left tackle is going to be the UCLA transfer, who's bad. The left guard, redshirt sophomore from Texas Tech, never played. He sparingly is bad. Their center, redshirt freshman. Their right guard, he's back, but he's been bad. And then the right tackle is a sophomore who's moving from left tackle. It was not very good. Like this offensive line could be a disaster. The defense, you do lose Sinclair, Bernadette from your linebacker, and Bailey went to Texas Tech. But the secondary is pretty experienced. They had this kid, Washington from Dartmouth, who's probably going to start at corner, who's pretty intriguing. So their D has a lot more experience. It's going to be the same scheme that they had last year. Like the coaching, a lot of that is more stable in the back end of their secondary. So I think their defense will be way ahead of their offense, which makes me think under. But look, some places it's 50.5. It's blasted through 55 and 51. We've already talked about those being the two biggest key numbers in college football. But I do think where I worry about Stanford the most, and there's a lot to worry about, is their offensive and defensive lines. But Hawaii can't really run the ball.
Right.
So and I think Stanford's secondary can be feisty enough to at least not get completely embarrassed. And then I don't know how the Stanford offense is really going to operate. So my first, I'm thinking about an under, but it's been hit. So I don't know if I still want to go there. I do like Hawaii, but that's also been hit. So I agree with the market on both of these moves. What are you seeing here between Stanford and Hawaii on the island?
I think there's an angle to both. I like both of those that you said, and I like your logic about how you got there, and I think there's a way to play those. But the thing that is really tough with Stanford is when you try to look at any kind of practice notes, when you try to look at any summary about what's going on, you hear Frank Reich or you hear Andy Thompson, the new DCs, just preach. We want scheme integrity, scheme responsibility, tackling fundamentals. Energy was good. Energy. It's like nothing that has to deal with the personnel or any players that are standing out. And
and you hear good depth. We like our depth at wide receiver. That means I love your wide receiver room.
And the other thing too is, I'm not saying this is a thing, but Troy Taylor was fired by Andrew Luck for bullying. How tough has it been on these Stanford players during camp? And I'm not saying it applies to it, but has camp been as tough it's been, say, maybe, for an SC, for what Billy Napier or there are certain head coaches out there like Tom Herman would run his players so hard in two-a-days that they'd all be hurt by the time they got to game one. Has Stanford had a pretty soft time? So there's a lot of things with Stanford that I'm just like, how can you come out and even try to bet this team? And you're right, Ben Goldbertson gets to start.
Brand new offense.
Yep.
Totally different schematic change, pretty complex. And now your quarterback is a guy who came in late. And then there's all the offensive line is going to be bad. The wide receiver room doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. What is there to really like here? I don't know.
And so it seems like the constants that we know, the variables that we can identify and bet on this game is that the top 5 tacklers return for Hawaii, and they should have one of the best front sevens in the Mountain West. So Goldberson's who he's going to hit and what he's going to do in this pro style, I don't know. But at least Hawaii, from a Mountain West perspective, has a pretty good defensive front. And from the Stanford side, all you have really is corner Collin Wright. Outside of that, how are they stopping Hawai'i on the offense with Micah Alejandro? I mean, yeah, 5 passing TDs against New Mexico. He's taken control of the team. He's the captain of the team. My question is, Pavel Ashlock, can he return to what he was 2 years ago in 2023? He had a big dip in his yards per route run. He just didn't have as much explosiveness last year. But they did say in camp, all the practice reports, that Alejandro had chemistry with the Kentucky wide receiver from the portal, Brandon White, who's lined up a total of 3 snaps in 2 years for the Wildcats. So I think here's what we're dealing with. We have more variables that we know and we trust out of Hawai'i, from the defensive line, from the linebacker group, and from a quarterback that we know that can hit a couple of wide receivers that have been there for a while. That's what we know, and that's why we like Hawai'i. So we agree with the move, but I think
the offensive line, I think, is in better shape than with Stanford. I like the Hawai'i safeties too. The biggest concern for me for Hawai'i, the left tackle, and then both cornerbacks. Is really what I'm watching there.
I think the only play you can make is not the full game. But I also believe this opinion too. I think Stanford under Frank Reich will play a better fourth quarter than they will play a better first quarter. I think he will be able to adjust better than Timmy. I think that, he's at least, got pro experience to where he knows how to do something at halftime that'll better suit what he has personnel out on the field. So in my opinion, whatever version we get of Stanford in the first half, I think it's going to change in the second half. I think he will make adjustments and it will be a better team for Stanford. I think the play here is Hawai'i first half. I think it's minus 120 out there in the market. I don't know if I could trust Timmy Chang full game. I mean, I've seen Hawai'i do some stupid shit in the first game on the island. I've seen so many balls get dropped. I've seen so many penalties that are uncalled for that affects the end of the game. But we have more variables we can trust in Hawai'i in the first half. And I do think Stanford will be better in the second half than they will be in the first half because of Frank Reich. So I like Hawai'i in the first half. I'm probably going to play a money line.
I had special teams Hawai'i. That if you're watching this game is close, they do concern me. They could be real bad. We'll see their kickers and their punter.
You're going to have
their punter was really, really good last year. So I wouldn't be surprised. Like they do worry me a bit. But what were you going to say?
You're going to have a bet on every game. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, where are you going to wait till we get to Chicago? Like, where are you going to go? So I think Hawai'i money line first half, I think, is where I'm going to be.
I don't hate that. If you're looking for a fun parlay, which I'll probably have a parlay just to for shits and giggles to give myself some action throughout the day, make sure I'm hitting on a lot of these games just for fun. Always do that in week 0. Like I would go maybe K-State money line, Fresno under, and then maybe like wait or like buy it to like 51.5, like just because of the key. And then Hawai'i money line. So K-State money line, Fresno under, Hawai'i money line, around plus 450-ish. Gives you beginning of day, early night, and semi-later night. So that's what I'm looking at.